Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. It's time to go ahead and get started. Welcome. This is CSE 1301, Introduction to Computer Science. My name is Doug Shook. I'm one of two instructors for the class. There's actually a second instructor, Professor Nuralahan, or Professor Nuri, as you can call her. But you probably won't be seeing her much on Mondays. You're going to be stuck with me on Mondays. You might see her on Wednesdays in the lab. We also have some head TAs, one of whom is here with us today. If you want to say hi real quick.
Yeah, hi, I'm Abby. I'm one of the head TAs. You'll see me on Wednesdays, also Presidio. So
Yep.
say hi.
And Evelyn is our other head TA. She's not here today, but you'll probably get a chance to meet her on Wednesdays as well. Just wanted to introduce myself real quick, tell you a little bit about me. I am a WashU alum, so I graduated with a master's degree from here in 2013, and I've been teaching here ever since. It's been over 15 years now since I've been actually started teaching while I was a grad student here. So I've been teaching for quite some time now. Outside of class, I'm a dad. I've got two kids. You'll probably hear me talk about them a lot because they consume a heck of a lot of my time. It's their first day of school today as well. They started first and third grade today. And I play a lot of video games. In fact, I'm really looking forward to getting home after class and continuing to play some video games after I get out of here. I do some speed running in the past. I've held some world records, although I don't currently hold any. I do a lot of jigsaw puzzles with my wife. And also, I play a lot of music. I'm a member of the St. Louis Civic Orchestra, which is not the professional, orchestra. It is just a community-led orchestra, but I still think we're pretty good. My primary instrument is the drums. I also play a little bit of piano. So, if you're interested in any of those things, I would love to have a chat with you about them after class. That second one in particular, video games, is probably what got me into computer science. I've been playing video games, since as long as I can remember, way back in the NES days, which is probably before your time, but that's what existed when I was a kid. I played NES, Super Nintendo, all the way through Nintendo Switch and all that fun stuff today. But as I mentioned, I'm not the only instructor. So Professor Nuri, there's actually three sections of this class. Professor Nuri is teaching the second and third sections, which are right after this one. You'll see me on every Monday for the lecture session. On the labs, whether you see me or not kind of depends on what time slot you're signed up for. So I am covering the 11:30 time slot on Wednesdays, which you're welcome to sign up for whatever time slot you want on Wednesdays. Some of you may not be in the 11:30 section. So if you signed up for the 1 o'clock section or the 2:30 section, then you'll see probably Professor Nuri on those days. But if you sign up for the 11:30 section, you'll see me. We both work together. We talk to each other about this class almost every single day. So anything that you would ask me about, you can also ask Professor Nuri about. If she doesn't know, I'll ask her and vice versa. So please, feel free to go to her office hours. If you can't make it to my office hours, anything that you could possibly need, you're welcome to go to either of us. I don't want you to feel like you're only restricted to talking to me about this class. We have a lot of people. We also have about 32 or 33 TAs who you're also going to get a chance to meet here on Wednesdays. So please feel free to talk to any of us if you need help with this class. Just want to start off with a brief mention that everybody is welcome here. And I mean this in a couple of different ways. One way that I mean that is that this is an introductory computer science class. So I understand that some of you might have some programming experience, maybe took some coding in high school, or maybe did some self-taught learning for coding, which is great. That's totally fine. You are welcome here. This class, however, is intended for people who have never done any coding whatsoever before in their entire lives. So if you have never looked at a line of code, written a line of code before, awesome. You are in the right place. This is the starting point for all programming, for all computer science here at Washington University. I also mean that in the sense that everybody's welcome here in terms of your backgrounds. We have got a lot of different kinds of people in the room. So we've got people coming from all parts of the country, maybe even different countries in this room right now, people of different, socioeconomic backgrounds. I want to make sure that you feel welcome here in that regard as well. And if you ever feel that that's not the case, please come talk to me about it. It's very important to me that all students feel welcome in this class. So I want to make that clear right up front. If you want to learn about computer science here at Washington University, you are welcome in this class. period. That being said, if you have some programming experience, if you've taken, for example, APCS in high school, this might be not the best use of your time, possibly. I can't really say that for sure. You would know better than I do based on your background. But if you've already taken APCSA, not the principal's version, but the APCSA class, this course is basically going to cover the same exact concepts. So if you've already done those concepts, you're not going to really pick up too much new stuff. You might get some extra practice, which whether you need that or not is a question for you to answer, right? Not for me. If you have taken APCS or some other computer science class, even if it's not AP, you can actually test out of this class. So if you took the AP exam, the APCSA exam, and got a 4 or a 5 on it, you can actually just let the department know and they'll pass you out of this class. You don't have to do anything. You just have to tell them about your AP score. Typically, students would move on to the next course in the sequence, which is either 1302 or 2407 would probably be your next stops after this class. If you didn't take the AP exam, but you still feel like you've got a significant amount of programming experience, there's also a placement exam that you can take. There's a link to the placement exam on the computer science department website. So if you take that placement exam and you do well enough on it, it's the same deal. You'll get this marked on your transcript. You won't have to take this class. You'll be able to move on. Some students like to kind of feel it out for a week or so and see if they're going to get a lot out of this class or not. And that's totally fine. You have until the drop add period, which is, I believe, next Thursday or something like that. Check the calendar to be absolutely certain. But I just want to make sure that you're aware we do get lots of students in here with varying computing backgrounds, some of whom have done quite a bit. I want to make sure that you're in the right place. So if you think that this may not be the best use of your time, if you've already have a lot of computing experience, come talk to me about it. I can help you try and figure out if this is the right place for you, or if maybe taking the placement exam, transferring to one of those other classes might be a better move, better use of your time. All right, let's talk about the course itself. We're going to go through all the traditional, syllabus day stuff. This course has a flow to it. So every week we're essentially doing a different module of material, which has its own rhythm to it. It feels a little bit different at first because it's not like your high school classes or even some of the other college classes that we teach here on campus. But the way that it works is like this. On Mondays, you have a lecture. We will go over a particular topic on that day, although we ask you to at least review some exercises ahead of time so that you're not coming in completely cold. I understand that not everybody does that, but I think you really get a lot more out of what I do here in this class if you at least do a little bit of prep work, do a little bit of reading, a little bit of practice before coming in today. In class, I will actually probably be doing a lot of the same exercises, prep work, although I also go off script a lot and talk about other different things. And then the idea is that on Wednesdays in your lab section, those are studio days. So you'll be actually put into groups. This probably won't happen this week, but within the next week or two, you'll be assigned to a studio group. And that group will have probably 3 or 4 people in it. And you'll be expected to work with that group on Wednesdays for the entire semester. We give you a problem in class to work on. You are not graded based on how well you do on that problem, or even if you finish the problem or not. You're simply graded based on, do you show up and work on the problem for that class time. We ask you to do some reflection questions at the end as kind of a check to make sure that you were at least doing something during that time and not just staring at your phone, watching reels or whatever the case may be. So studios are really participation-based. You get credit just for showing up and working with your teammates. This is where a lot of the learning happens, right? You can only learn so much from listening to me blab on about coding. As much as I like to talk about coding, the best experience comes from doing and talking to other people who are learning, who are at the same skill level as you are. So that's kind of the idea behind the studios. Once the studio is over, so after you come to class on Wednesday, you complete the studio assignment, or you don't even have to complete it. You just work on the studio assignment for an hour and 20 minutes. There is an assignment. These assignments are meant to be worked on your own time. So go home and work on them And then the way that the assignment works are a little bit different. There are 9 modules, which means there are 9 homework assignments. However, we're not going to grade all 9 assignments for each person. Instead, we're going to ask you to bring in 3 of those 9 homework assignments over the course of the semester, roughly 1/3 apart, and talk to us about it. So it's not just whether you can complete the code, complete the assignment, but we really want to check and make sure you understand what's going on. So we're going to ask you to explain your code. We're going to ask you why you did things in a certain way, and you're going to be graded more on those kinds of comments rather than whether your code works or not. I'll talk a little bit more about that once we get into Canvas and start talking about, that kind of stuff. And then to kind of wrap up each module, we have a quiz at the end of every lecture on Monday. Actually, we're going to start with one next week, although I just want to make it clear, the one next week is practice, does not count. It's just kind of a little warm-up. After that one, though, starting with the second quiz, they do count. Every Monday, we're going to have a quiz. It's based off of the previous week's material. So today, I'm going over the material from Module 1. Next week, the quiz is going to be on the material from Module 1, right? And so next week, I go over the material from Module 2. The quiz that you take the week after that will be on Module 2. So the quiz is always going to be on the previous week's material. The idea is that by then you've completed the studio and hopefully at least started, if not completed, the assignment and are able to then show us that you understand the concepts from that week's material before we move on to the next week's material. Just to kind of reiterate all of these things, I want to switch over to Canvas and give you a quick tour. I know some of you have probably already poked around on Canvas, which is great. One thing I want to point you to on Canvas is the calendar. The calendar has been set up for this class. Everything for the entire semester is already on here. So you can look up and see what we're doing on every single day for every single class, both Mondays and Wednesdays, for the entire semester. It's already on here. Yours might look a little bit different than mine, depending on which lab section and such you're signed up for. But the general structure should be roughly the same. So you can see here's that first quiz that I just promised you we were going to be doing next week at the end of Monday's lecture. But again, that's just a warm-up. It doesn't actually count. The other part of this that kind of deviates from the schedule that I wanted to talk to you about are the exams. This is a big class. We have over 300 students signed up across all 3 sections. So the exams are taking place in the evenings. And the exam dates are already on here. You can see the first exam is scheduled for September 24th at 6:30 p.m. We'll have more information about where you need to go and everything like that as the exam gets closer. But the reason I want to point this out now is that these evening exams are set in stone. You have to be there. If you have conflicts, if you have other things that are getting in the way of that, that is something that you need to resolve now because we are not budging. One of the policies is that we do not do makeup exams. I'll get to that in just a second. But just want to make it clear that the 3 exams that we have here, exam 1 is on September 24th. Exam 2 is down here on the 29th of October. And then exam 3 is in December, I believe. Yeah, December 3rd. Those are absolutely 100% set in stone. Please make sure you do not have any conflicts with those. We do not budge on those exam things. But let's talk about the course policies because we do want to make sure that you have some flexibility. We understand that people do have lives outside of this class. There is flexibility baked into the course. So I want to kind of go over some course policies real quick. Just make sure you understand everything that is happening in this class. Here are the graded components. So the studios that I mentioned, those are your Wednesday lab sessions. You get credit just for showing up. There are going to be either 9 or 10 of them, kind of depending on some things over the course of the semester, and you get 2 drops. So you really only have to attend 7 or 8 of them, although we hope you come to all of them, because as I said, that's the best learning experience, in my opinion, is getting to work on a problem and talk to your peers about that problem. The lecture quizzes that we're going to be doing in here on Mondays are worth 12% of your grade, but again, you also get 2 drops in case you get sick or have to go out of town or whatever the case may be. The code evaluation, that's what I was talking about with the homework assignments, where there are 9 assignments, but you actually only have to show us 3 of them. Um, the way that that works is we'll release a schedule for you to sign up for a time to come in and show us your work. That schedule is going to be for 3-week periods. So, for example, the first schedule is probably going to come out next week. We're going to ask you to sign up for a time to come in and show us one of your assignments next week. If you sign up on the week of the 7th, we're going to expect you to show us assignment 1, because that's the assignment that's due that week. If you sign up for the week of the 14th, we're going to expect you to show us assignment 2, because that's the assignment that's due that week. If you sign up for the week of the 21st, we're going to expect you to show us assignment 3, because that's the assignment that's due that week, right? So that's how the homework assignments work. We do not grade all of the homework assignments, but we do grade 3 of them per person. They kind of build off of each other. So, even if you aren't being graded on all of them, we still expect you to do them, right? We still expect you to work on them. It is very much in your benefit to complete those homework assignments and get them done. We'll have more information about the signups, as I said, next week when we release our first signup. So that is what we mean by the code evaluation, part of the course. The exams, as I mentioned, those evening exams take place. We do drop one of your exams. So there are 3 midterms and 1 final exam. So there's actually 4 exams in total. We drop your lowest exam grade. So if you get sick on an exam day, if you have to be out of town on an exam day, we don't do makeups. If you write to us and ask for makeup, we're going to say, sorry. Course policy says we don't do makeups. If you scroll down a little bit, that's exactly what it says right here. If you have a conflict, right, we don't do makeups. Instead, that'll be expected to use your drop. If you come to exam 1, exam 2, and exam 3, and you do really well on them, whatever that means for you, you still have a drop left. So that means you don't necessarily have to show up for the final. And that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. That is totally 100% fine by us, right? But that drop is not, is meant to be used when you have some kind of outside circumstance interfering with class time. So that's kind of how we deal with things in this class. You might have noticed that all of our course policies rely on drops, not makeups. If you can't make a quiz, that's a drop. If you can't make a studio, that's a drop. If you can't make an exam, that's a drop. You can ask us for makeup exams, but we're going to point you to the course policies and say we don't do makeups. We don't do makeup studios. We don't do makeup quizzes. We don't do makeups. It's a big class. It's very hard to manage 320 people's schedules over the course of 15 weeks. So we don't do makeups. We do drops. If you have to miss something, it's going to be one of your drops. So I hope that's clear. I hope that is, understandable why we do that. Let's see. What else do I need to talk about regarding this? I'm going to talk about academic integrity a little bit later. Let me pause right here and see if anybody has any questions about the structure or any of the course policies that I've talked about so far. Yes. Well, so the code evaluation, the signups will be, we're going to release a whole block of times for you to sign up and come in and do a code evaluation. So next week, we're going to release times for the next 3 weeks. There will be at least 320 times for you to sign up from, because that's how many students there are in the class. So you'll have to sign up for that time, and at that time you show up either to my office or to TA office hours, or wherever the sign up time tells you to go. Have your assignment ready and be ready to talk about it. That's how homework assignments work. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a new process for us this year. We're trying something a little bit different. So there might be some growing pains, might be some hiccups as we work through it, but that's the plan. Any other questions? Yeah. That's actually not correct. You only need to submit those 3 to us. We will not grade the other ones. We will not check to make sure that you did them. That is on you. That is on you to do. Yeah. That being said, some of the assignments literally, as I mentioned, build off of each other. So it'll be very hard for you to complete some of them without completing the ones that come before it first. We still want you to do the assignments. We're not telling you that you shouldn't do the assignments. It's more of a capacity thing. There are so many students, and the way that we want to grade the assignments takes some time. It requires an in-person, face-to-face conversation. We simply do not have enough people to do that for all 9 assignments for every single student. Yes,
Studios are like small group.
correct. Yes,
We all have to come in.
correct. We do take attendance on Wednesdays. Yes, that is absolutely correct. We take attendance on Wednesdays. We make sure you're there. If you show up and you are looking at whatever that's not the studio, it doesn't matter what it is, I will take attendance away from you that day, right? You have to also have to participate, right? But we do take attendance on that day. Any other questions? Yes. As far as your grade goes, you're only going to be evaluated 3 times, but there are office hours. So if you ever want to come in and discuss an assignment with me or the TAs or Professor Nuri, you are more than welcome to do that. Yes. Were there any other questions? Thought I saw one more. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great question. There's a link right here. I don't think all of them have been posted yet. Mine actually, I've already posted mine. I don't know if Professor Nuri, oh, she did get around to posting hers. Yeah. Um, Mine are posted already from 1 to 2 p.m. Monday through Thursday. They might change. I actually think I might end up adding some more office hours. That's right after class, you might notice, on Mondays. So immediately after this, I go back to my office and I'm there. It's also after class on Wednesdays if you signed up for the 11:30 section, because I'm in that 11:30 section in the labs, and then I have office hours right after that. But you, as I mentioned, you're also welcome to go to Professor Nuri's office. You do not have to go to my office hours. If my office hours don't work for you, if you have classes or whatever in the way, you're welcome to go to Professor Nuri's office hours. And we also have TA office hours posted here as well. So you're very welcome to go to those TA office hours. And if none of those options work for you, if you have conflicts or classes or other things getting in the way, shoot me an email. We'll figure something out. I want to meet with you, right? If you want to meet with me, I will find a time to make it work, even if it is not one of these times. We will figure something out. I promise. That's my job. Meeting with students is actually one of my all-time favorite things to do as part of my job. So if you want to meet with me and these times aren't working for you, please, please, please reach out to me. I know Professor Nuri feels the same way. Reach out to her. We will figure out a time that works for you if we need to. Yep. Any other questions before we move on? Not seeing any. Okay. One other thing I guess that I want to point to bring your attention to real quick is the software installation and setup. So I made an announcement about this morning, and then you hopefully got that email about getting your GitHub/Classroom 50 account set up. This is something that you're welcome to begin working on now. I know that some of you have already been working on it. I can tell just from checking the stats this morning that some people have already been working on it, which is great. I would encourage you to take a look at that sometime soonish. You don't have to do it today. We actually have time in class on Wednesday set aside to help people with this. So if you don't get it done by Wednesday, we'll make sure you get it done before you leave the labs on Wednesday, basically. But I would encourage you, if you have the time, to take a look at it, see how far you can get. And if you get stuck, don't worry about it. Bring it into class on Wednesday. We'll have all of the TAs there. I'll be there. Well, at least for the 11:30 section, I'll be there. Professor Nuri will be there. We'll help you out if you get stuck and you need to you need some help figuring out how to get everything set up. But the other thing to pay attention to on the homepage here, you can see all these modules laid out. So they all start with the exercises. So the module 1 exercises, this is actually the very first set of exercises. This is what we're asking you to do before you come to class on Monday. There are kind of a lot of them. But they're short. A lot of these are short. You'll notice that as the semester goes on, there are fewer exercises. They're just a bit longer. So at the beginning, there's quite a lot, but they're all pretty short. I'm about to start going through some of these here in just a few moments. Ideally, though, you would at least take a look at these and bring questions to class. I really love it when students say, hey, I tried to work on this exercise, but I got stuck, couldn't figure it out. Could you go through that one in class? Yes. 100%. Every time, yes, absolutely. Would be happy to go through whatever exercise that you want. If nobody suggests any, I have my own list of ones that I want to, talk about. But I won't have time to go through all of them. There's just not enough time on Mondays for me to go through every single one of these exercises. So we're really relying on you to take the time outside of class to practice these. And then the studios are all listed here. So we're actually going to be starting with Studio 0 on Wednesday because it's practice, it's warm up, doesn't count, right? We're just trying to get you in the flow. We also know it's a drop add period, so we don't want to do too much stuff that counts for credit before drop add period is over. So a lot of the stuff that you see here is practice. Assignment 0, also practice. Doesn't count for credit, just trying to get you in the rhythm of the class, trying to get you in the flow. Yeah. Oh, we actually aren't doing that this year. That needs to go away. Glad I noticed that. All right, cool. But everything is on Canvas. So if you ever are wondering, what do I need to do for this class? Please check Canvas first. I know there's a lot of stuff on there. And so, if you're really having a hard time finding something, email me. My email address is right here on the syllabus. Please email me. We also have a discussions page on Canvas that you're welcome to post on if you want to get help that way. The nice thing about using the discussion, if you email me directly, I'm only one person. I have stuff going on. As I said, I have a dad. I'm a dad. I also have a dad, but I am a dad. Both things are true. But I'm very busy, right? So the odds of me getting back to you quickly are moderate, but not super high. If you post something on the discussion page, then I'm not the only person that sees it. Professor Nuri can see it, the TAs can see it. So the chances of you getting something back more quickly, if you desire a quick response, the discussions are probably a better way to go. If time isn't a factor, then by all means, email me, and I will certainly get back to you usually within 24 hours. I try to answer every email from students within 24 hours. If it's particularly time sensitive, you may want to consider using that discussions page instead. All right. I think I covered everything. Oh yeah, one other little tidbit, I guess, about the class. You'll notice that the course review counts for 1%, and there's actually 101% on the class. That is not a typo. We have a little bit of quote unquote extra credit kind of baked in there for you already. So there are more than 100%'s worth of points available to receive in this class. Plus, don't forget that you have all those drops and things if you need some flexibility, if you're sick or have some other conflicts with class as well. Let me switch back to my slides here real quick because I have a couple other syllabus-y kinds of things to talk about, slash rants to go on, I guess, depending on how you feel. This one is really important to me, really, really important to me. How to do well in this class. We are asking you to build a skill in this class. That skill is writing code. In order to get better at writing code, you need to write code. I often compare a lot to learning. I'm a musician, so I compare a lot to learning a musical instrument. If you want to learn how to play the piano, you have to practice playing the piano. You can go watch people play the piano all day long, right? And I do. I think it's great. You can go to piano lessons even if you want to. But if you don't actually sit down and play the piano, practice the piano, you're not going to get better at it. That's just how building skills works. You have to practice them. The same thing is true for this class. If you want to get better at writing code, you have to write code. You have to get your hands on the keyboard and write the code yourself. Do it yourself. Is by far the best way to learn. It is way better than listening to me talk here in lecture. I don't think that it is completely, obviously I wouldn't be standing here if I thought that lectures were useless. I think there is some value to going through things together as a group. But the best way to learn is to practice. A lot of times I'll get students in my office, especially after the first exam, and they'll say, I thought I understood the studios. I thought I understood the homework assignments. I did really well on them, got good grades or whatever. But then the first exam came around and I just tanked it, just bombed it. My first question is, what are you doing outside of class? How much are you practicing? How much are you actually going through the exercises and typing out the solutions? Not just looking at them and saying, oh, I think I understand how that works, but typing out the solutions. Of course, the other thing that's kind of involved in this is the big elephant in the room, which is AI. I can promise you that AI can do everything in this class very well. AI could get 101% in this class, no problem. Absolutely no problem. It is not against course policy to use AI in this class. So you'll actually notice that if you take a look at the course policy. But You're not going to be able to use AI on the exams. You're not going to be able to use AI on those quizzes. The only person who is writing stuff on the exam is you. That's it. So if you have not practiced writing code and you show up to the first exam where we're going to ask you to write code, then you're probably going to have a bad time. That is, I've seen it time and time again. So I think AI is a great tool. I think that asking AI to complete the assignments for you is a very bad use of AI. I think asking AI to generate practice problems for you is a great use of AI. If you are struggling with a course concept, and you've done all the exercises, you're just like, I have no idea what's going on, ask AI to give you more practice problems. Ask AI to give you more exercises and crank them out. Again, practice, practice, practice. That is how to do well in this course. To me, that is by far the most important thing that you can do to get better at what we're asking you to do in this course, which is writing code. Another thing that I kind of would like to address too, because I think is important, is, why are we even learning all of this stuff? If AI is so good at it, isn't AI just going to write all this stuff for us in the future anyway? Possibly, right? But it still requires a knowledgeable human to use that AI effectively. So it is still very much necessary for a person to understand how to talk to the AI, how to analyze the results that the AI is giving us. I compared a lot to a different field that is not quite computer science, but kind of related, which is pilots flying, right? There's a box in every single airplane that can fly that plane. It can take off. It can get us to where we're going. It can also land the plane for us. My question to you then is, who would you rather have sitting in that cockpit? Somebody who can punch numbers into that box or somebody who can actually fly the plane? I would much rather have somebody who can fly the plane and not just punch numbers into the autopilot and let the autopilot fly the plane. Is that what they're doing a lot of times? Sure. But problems happen, stuff goes wrong. They still need to be knowledgeable enough to step in and fly the plane, understand when the autopilot is maybe not doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? Because computers aren't always correct. They're only as good as the humans that operate them. So just like AI is transforming the world of computer science, there's no doubt about that. The job market is very, very different for computer scientists than it was even 5 years ago. All you have to do is read the news to see that that much is true. It still requires knowledgeable people. Another example, and I promise this is the last one before I stop ranting about this topic. Consider I learned how to do long division back in fourth grade, probably somewhere around there, maybe off by a year or so in either direction. I have never done long division since. And I would imagine that you all are probably in the similar boat. You learned how to do long division at some point in time. But never since then have you actually sat down and put the little rectangle and written off numbers and did long division, right? Was it still worthwhile for you to learn how to do that? Absolutely. It shows you how division works, right? It shows you how the numbers interact with each other. It helps you learn how to follow step-by-step procedure. There are so many reasons why it is beneficial to learn how to use long division, even if I'm never actually going to do it. I'm always just going to punch it into a calculator or a computer to do the actual division, which is what I do, and what I imagine all of you do as well. It's kind of the same thing in this class. We are teaching you the building blocks. We are teaching you the very basics of computer science. Even if after you exit this class, you use AI to do all of it, you still need to understand how it works. You still need to understand what the AI is doing and how it works. And in order to do that, you have to practice. You have to get your hands on the keyboard. The more code you type in this class, the easier time you're going to have on an exam, period. So that's the end of my rant. I will stop ranting about that now. But just to be clear, AI is not against course policies. I want to make it clear, though, what we're expecting from you, especially on the homework assignments. You're not allowed to use AI on the quizzes and exams. Technically, you can use them on the homework assignments. I would encourage you not to, as much as possible, because as I mentioned, when you come in and demonstrate your work to somebody, they're going to ask you questions. They're not just going to say, oh, yeah, this works. See you later. We don't need to set up face-to-face conversations to do that. We can do that from home, right? We're asking you to come in so that we can ask you questions about your code. Why did you choose to do it this way? How does this part of the section, how does this section of the code work? Walk me through it step by step. Tell me what it's doing. That's what you're going to be graded on. That is how we are going to assess you on these homework assignments. So you are responsible for understanding everything that we teach, and the exams and the quizzes are going to test your ability to write code. If you let the AI write all of your code, you are robbing yourself of very valuable practice. So please consider that whenever you consider using AI for this class. If you want to talk to me more about it, then come chat to me after class or talk to me in office hours. I think I already mentioned this stuff, so I don't need to go over it again. Academic integrity. All right, this is the last syllabusy kind of thing that we're going to do before we actually take a look at some code here in the next few minutes. CS is hard. Some people would argue that AI is making it easier. I'm not so sure that that's actually true. The concepts are still just as challenging if you're trying to understand them. If you're really trying to get good at them, the concepts are still important. So we know that it's hard. We know that it's challenging. It's not for everybody. Some people are going to look at this stuff and be like, wow, this all makes complete sense, and just fly right through it. Other people are going to look at it and be like, I want to learn this, but oh my gosh, it just doesn't fit in my brain. That's me with other things, right? I love computer science. That's why I'm standing here in front of you teaching computer science. If you threw me in a chemistry class, oh my gosh, no way. My brain cannot handle it. I love the idea of chemistry, hate actually doing it. So, don't be too disappointed if computer science just doesn't gel with you. I completely understand. But please, 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 please do not use that as an excuse to just crank through everything in AI or copy off your neighbors on the quizzes and exams, because we do take that very seriously. We will report academic integrity concerns, which copying on the quizzes and exams is probably our biggest academic integrity concern in this class. Something that we will be looking out for, something that we will call students on if we notice that it's happening. And there's a whole procedure set up in place to go through academic integrity concerns. It's all through the school. I'm not going to go through that whole process now. You can read about it online. There's a whole policy on the syllabus about it as well. But it also just goes against the spirit of what we're trying to do here, which is, ask you to practice and then give you feedback on how you're doing. If you truly don't know something well on a quiz, then at the very least, you should get that feedback, right? Oh, I actually need to study this module more. I didn't do well enough on the quiz. That's what the quizzes are for, to provide you that feedback, to give you that indicator of how well you are doing. We don't want to fail students in this class. We want to give people A's. An A is by far the most common grade that we give in this class. And one of the more common reasons why we don't give A's is because of academic integrity problems. So please keep that in mind. If you get stuck, please come and ask for help. I would love to see you in my office hours. I would love to go through the exercises with you. I would love to help you on any of the exercises that you're stuck with, any of the assignments that you're stuck with. That is my job, and it's one of the more fun parts of my job, in my opinion. So please consider taking advantage of the resources that are available to you before resorting to doing something that is academically dishonest. Okay, I think that is all that I have in terms of syllabus stuff. I'm going to pause one more time and see if anybody has any questions about any of the procedures and things that I've talked about so far. Yes. How are they formatted? They're on paper. We actually give you past exam questions. So if you take a look at the stuff on Canvas, if you take a look at the practice quiz, these are past exam questions. Those are questions that were on exams in the past. Same thing for so you'll see that a lot of them have two. They have a practice quiz, and then they have this other one that is more of a coding practice where we ask you to write code problems. Those are also problems that have appeared on past exams. So if you want to know what kinds of stuff has appeared on exams, just take a look at those. We post exam prep practice problems for every exam. So exam 1 coding prep, same deal. Those are past exam problems. No, actual code. Yeah, actual code. Any other questions that I can address before we move on? Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm recording right now, as a matter of fact. So lectures are recorded. I will post this onto Canvas probably by the end of the day today. Sometimes it takes me until the next day, but I definitely will post it within the next day or so. Yeah. That's a good question. You don't have to use VS Code. I will say that if you go in a different direction, so IntelliJ is maybe the more common option that people would want to use that's not VS Code. RTAs are not trained in that, so they will not be as they will not be able to help you as effectively if you're using that and you have problems, for example. If that's not a concern to you, then I don't have a problem with it. I know how to use IntelliJ. I don't know how to use every single tool, but I know how to use a lot of them. So I might be able to help you, but still no promises there. If you haven't used any of those tools before, then VS Code, please, you'll be able to get the best help that way. That's what our TAs know how to help with. Yeah. Oh, did I not put my office location on here? That's totally 100% my bad. Yep. Let me fix that right now. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I posted the times, but not the location. Uh, my office is in Lopata 204H. There we go. Yeah, thank you. I was about to sit in my office for an hour, 4 days a week, and wonder why nobody was showing up. Glad you corrected me on that. Yes. No, they're assigned to you. We won't have them ready for you this week. So when you show up to lab on Wednesday, it'll be kind of a free for all. The first lab is kind of chaotic, to be honest with you, because some people haven't even installed the stuff yet. Other people have installed it before they get there. So it's kind of all over the place. But by the time you get here for next week, we will have assigned you into studio groups. And the studio for this week doesn't count anyway. So you'll have a studio group by the time we do the first real studio, which is next Wednesday. Yeah. Great questions. I know I've thrown a lot at you. Any other questions before we switch gears and do something totally different for the remainder of the time? Okay. Not seeing any hands, which is great. So for the rest of the time, I want to look at code. That's what we came here to do. That's what this class is about. It's about code. It's about understanding code, writing code. And so what I'm going to be doing for the remainder of the time, we have, let's see, we get out at 12:50, right? So we have at least half an hour or so, a little bit more than that. I'm going to go through some code examples. The code examples that I'm going to go through, I'm trying to give you a head start here. I'm going to go through the Module 1 exercises. So these are the first exercises of the entire course. These are, you know, the introductory, the most basic, most introductory material that we offer. When you come next Monday, I'm probably not gonna have time to get through all the Module 1 stuff today. Probably gonna run out of time. When you come next Monday, I'm gonna finish up, maybe pick up where I left off and finish with these and hop into the Module 2 exercises. We're actually doing these a little bit ahead of schedule because pesky Labor Day gets in the way. So normally we would ask you to wait a little bit before moving on to Module 2. If you look at the calendar, you'll see that it actually kind of asks you to look at both Module 1 and Module 2 before next Monday. I know that's a lot to ask. Normally we would not ask you that. The reason why we're doing it that way, again, is because we have that Labor Day holiday where we're not able to meet on Monday. So do the best you can. You're not graded on the exercises. If you don't get through all of them, that's totally okay, right? Don't worry about it. Don't freak out. We're just asking you to do as much as you can between now and next week so that when we get back from Labor Day, we're on track. And then from there, it'll be a much more normal, reasonable 1 module per week schedule. We just kind of are doing a little bit of a faster start because that holiday gets in the way. So I just wanted to explain that. But for the rest of the day today, we're going to be getting through as many of these Module 1 exercises as we can. This is VS Code. So I know that some of you have already gone through the software setup and instructions. Hang on a sec. I want to see if I can change the lights a little bit to make that a little easier to read. Awesome. I know some of you have already gone through the setup instructions and things like that. So maybe you've already gotten this far, which is great. If you haven't gotten this far, Also totally okay. I would not actually expect you to have all of this set up by today. It's the very first day of class. So no worries if you haven't gotten this far yet. But to get here, again, just want to remind you, in order to get everything set up, you need to go to Canvas and take a look at the software installation and setup. It will lead you step by step through the process to install VS Code on your computer, as well as get all of these code exercises loaded up into VS Code. I'm not going to go through that right now. I'm going to let you do that on your own time. And again, come to class on Wednesday if you get stuck, if you need help. We will help you in class on Wednesday. What I want to do is start talking about code and start talking to you about what we're going to be learning about in this class this semester. This is a programming language that we're looking at on the screen right now, those colorful words in the middle. This is a program. Specifically, this is a Java program. So there are lots and lots of different programming languages in the world. If you've had programming experience before, my bet would be that you either learned this one, Java, or the other popular one to learn these days is called Python, which does the same exact things. It just looks a little bit different. You might be wondering, well, why? What's the point? Humans also have lots of different languages in which we can convey the exact same ideas, but in different ways, right? If I said the same sentence in Spanish, I could say the exact same ideas, but the words would sound very different because it's a different language. So the same thing's true for computing. We're going to be using Java in this class. Java is still one of the most popular programming languages in the world, usually bounces around somewhere. It used to be the most popular. I don't think it is anymore. It usually hovers around the second or third most popular programming language in the world. So still very, 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 very widely used. Still a great choice to learn. And this is a language that we're going to be learning this semester. Over here on the left-hand side, each one of these are files, or perhaps a more accurate way to refer to them. Each one of these is a program. Each one of these is a separate Java program. So each program can be run, each program can be executed on the computer, and each program consists of a series of statements that tells the computer what to do. The one that we're looking at right here is the simplest program that you can possibly make. It does not get any simpler or more direct than this. And actually, we're not even going to look at all parts of this. This chunk of code right here and this chunk of code right here, we're going to save those for another day. I'm actually not even really worried about those today. I'm going to kind of treat those as magic words, hocus pocus, for a little bit. Well, I understand that's maybe not terribly satisfying, and you might say, hey, I'm just supposed to blindly trust that this stuff does what it's supposed to do. Yes, but I also am going to make the promise to you that we will eventually get there. By the time this semester is over, we will explain what those magic hocus pocus words do. I promise you, absolutely. For now, just treat them as necessary, required parts of the code. The real thing that I'm interested in talking to you about so far is this line right here. So this is what we call an instruction or programming statement. This is an instruction. It tells the computer to do something. Specifically, this instruction tells the computer to print out a message. And the message that is being printed out is listed right here inside of the parentheses. So you can see that this first part is saying, hey, I want you to print something. And then the part that is inside of the parentheses is saying, here's what I want you to print. To run this program, there's a few different ways you can do it. Perhaps the simplest way is to, I need to turn off restricted mode first. I didn't notice that was even on. Sorry about that. So there's a few different ways you can do it. You can right-click on the program and go down to or go to this option that says Run Java, or there's a little triangle here, a little play icon, right, that does the same exact thing. Depending on whichever one you pick, once you click it, it pops up a little window and it says, I'm doing some stuff. Usually doesn't take quite this long, but we'll give it a minute to finish doing what it's doing. Hopefully it doesn't take much longer. Should be relatively straightforward. It's not a complex program. Or maybe my computer is just a little slow today. It's the first day of class. Any moment now. There we go. All right, cool. Yes, I'll go ahead and allow this to happen. Okay. And then finally, I know that took a bit longer than perhaps expected. I don't think it'll take that long for all of the ones that I do. We see that, okay, the program runs. And there's the message that I told it to display. And so if I want to, I can actually modify this. It's actually what we're really hoping that you do and get used to. We don't just want to take the code and use it as is. We want to tweak it. We want to make it suit our needs. So, maybe we want to change the message. Hi, my name is Professor Shook. Right? You can type that if you want, although I'm guessing your name is not Professor Shook, so you might want to type your name in there instead to make it a little bit more accurate. And if we run the program again, we'll see that, okay, this time the program has changed. It now is running the new instruction that I gave to it. So this is how programming works. This is how a Java program works. It is a series of statements. We only have one statement here, which is not terribly exciting, doesn't do a whole lot. We want to build more interesting programs. We want to build more complex programs. So we're going to be writing a lot more than just one statement at a time. Eventually, we're going to be writing lots and lots of statements. But for starters, we're going to be writing simple programs, small programs, no more than maybe a dozen or so lines at the most, just to kind of get a feel for all the different kinds of things that we can do. But this is the process. This is what we want you to work on. This is the way to think about these exercises and approach these exercises. So let's move on to another example. Notice I'm actually skipping the second one, so I don't have time to go through them all. So I have to kind of pick and choose which ones I have time to talk about in class. But please take a look at this one and try it out yourself after class. I think that would be great practice once you get everything set up. I'm going to move on to exercise 3. So here we're given another program. It starts off very similar to the last one, except now I see we have 3 statements, 3 instructions here. And if I run this program, we'll see that the output looks a little bit different. So it says hi there, but the exclamation point is on the next line. Anybody take a look at this and understand why that might be happening? Yeah. So there's actually 2 different commands here. That's absolutely correct. We have 2 different commands here. One of them is called println, and one of them is just called print. They do very similar things, but the ln, that's an abbreviation for line. I kind of imagine that as the old school typewriter, where I get to the end of the line and I scooch it all the way back and get ready to type on the next line. That's what this statement does. Whenever we use println, the very following statement is going to occur not on the same line, but on the next line. Whenever we use print without the ln, so you'll notice the hi gets printed, and then when we print out the next statement here, it gets printed on the same line. So if we use just print without the ln, it's going to keep printing on the same line where I was. As soon as we use ln, that's the indication to print this out and then move down to the next line for anything else that's going to come afterwards. So the exercise here is to modify this code so that we fix this, presentation, put the exclamation point up on the end. How are we going to do that? I can think of a couple different ways. Yeah.
Let's get rid of it.
We can get rid of the ln. That's absolutely one possible way that we could have done it. And we can run that and hopefully verify that it works. Any other suggestions? That one will work? Yeah, in the blue. We don't need 3 lines to do this. We don't need 3 instructions to do this. That is a great observation, and something that is very, very common in the world of computing. I can do things sometimes all in one go, or I can do things and break them up into chunks. This one's been broken up into chunks, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It is not necessarily incorrect to take up something and break it into pieces, especially if the thing you're breaking up is particularly complex. In that case, I would probably encourage you to break it up into smaller pieces just for the sake of understanding. But this is not terribly complex, so why not just do it all in one go like this? Absolutely. I think that is a great suggestion, and it gets us to the same place, which is kind of another interesting observation, right? In computing, like with most mathematical disciplines, there's not just going to be one path to get where you're going. there's going to be multiple paths to get where you're going, and one is not necessarily better than the other. Or what makes one better than the other is somewhat subjective. Some people might think that their way of doing things is better, but somebody else might think that it's worse. So there's, not going to be a definitive right or wrong way to do something. Depends on who you're talking to and what you're trying to do. So yeah, two very great suggestions. Not the only ways. See if you can find another way to do it, because there definitely are. There definitely are other ways to accomplish this same effect. Let's take a look at the next example. So far, we've only been dealing with text. In fact, I know that I've been dealing with text. There's been some pretty telltale clues. How do I know I've been dealing with text? Well, clearly there are words here, but what else? Yeah. The quotes. Yeah, the quotation marks. So whenever I'm dealing with text, you'll see quotes around the text that I'm using. This is very, very important. The title of this module, Module 1, is Data Types. So this is an illustration of one kind of data, text, or in computer science world, we call them strings. Strings is just the computer science way of saying text. Why is it called a string? Because it is a string of characters. That is where the word string comes from, if you're curious. So strings is text, but that's not all we can do. We can also do numbers. We can also do arithmetic. So let's take a look at this example. Instead of printing out text, this time we've got arithmetic. And so you can see we've got a multiplication operation happening here, followed by a division operation, and then some simple addition. Let's run this and take a look, see if anything stands out. So here you can see that, okay, I don't actually see 570 times 23. I see the result. So it actually computed that result and printed it out. Same thing for this one. It actually computed this result and then printed out the result, and also for the last one. But if I move on and I take a look at exercise number 5, well, here it looks like we're kind of trying to do the same thing as before, where I want to see the result of 570 times 23. And if I run this, you'll see that, oh, wait a second. I wanted to see the result there, just like I did on the previous example, but I don't. I don't see the result. Why? I see a ton of hands going up. Yeah. It's in quotes. It's in quotes. So even though these are numbers and it looks like multiplication, I put it in quotes. This is a very, very important point when working with computers. The data type, the type of the information that you are working with, affects how the computer deals with that information. Because I put it in quotes, it treated it as text. It did not see that star and think multiplication. It saw the quotes and thought, oh, text, I don't need to do any math here. So it's up to us as programmers to make sure that we know how to treat our data appropriately in the program. The computer is not going to see this and think, oh, they wanted the result. That's up to us to figure out and make sure that we are properly telling the computer to do the result, print out the arithmetic. So if I take the quotes off of this one, we'll see that, okay, there we go. Now I actually get the proper result back out. I actually get the computation, the value that is being computed here. Awesome. Let's take a look at some common errors, because I want to promise you, as you're coding, especially if you're writing the code yourself, you're going to make mistakes. I've been coding for at least 20 years now, probably even longer, since I was an undergrad in computer science. I make mistakes. The programs that I write, the code that I write, does not work the first time. I screw things up. I make mistakes. There are different kinds of mistakes to be made, however. We actually just saw an example of a kind of mistake. This is what we would call a logic error. The program ran. It did what I told it to do. I just didn't get the result that I wanted because I made a mistake in logic. I thought I was doing things a certain way, but actually I told the computer to do it a different way. Those are logic errors. Those are tricky. Actually, this is a pretty simple one, but logic errors are usually the trickier ones to figure out. There are other errors, however, and especially as you're learning, you're probably going to run into more kinds of errors like these. if you see the text that is underlined in red inside of VS Code, that is an indication that you have made a syntax error. So you have forgotten an important piece of punctuation usually, or you left out a word, something along those lines to where this won't even run. If I try to run this program, it's going to say, hey, I can't do it. And actually, a lot of times, not only will it say I can't do it, but it'll tell you an error message, which may or may not be easy for you to figure out what to do. Plug that thing into Google if you need a more English representation of what the error message means. That's a very common thing to do. Search for it, and it'll tell you. It'll give you a more human friendly version of this. But I think to most people, it's probably obvious what the error is here, right? There's an opening quote, but there's no closing quote. That's just not going to work. There has to be matching. Has to be matching quotes for each one. That's a syntax error. Any kinds of errors that get underlined in red and prevent your program from running, those are syntax errors. So those are usually just missing pieces of punctuation. Here's another one. Same general idea though, right? Not a quote this time, but a parenthesis. So we had this open parenthesis here, but we forgot our closing parenthesis. That's another kind of syntax error that is pretty common. Here are some other ones. So there's actually two in this example. One of them, which I haven't actually talked about yet, is the semicolon. That's like the period at the end of our sentence, except for it's semicolon at the end of our expression when we're talking about Java. Those are required. We have to have those semicolons at the end. The other error, though, is a little bit more finicky and a little bit more subtle. This word looks correct, but there is something off about it when you compare it to what we were looking at before. You'll notice that, well, it's not green, obviously. That's not really the problem. The problem is this first letter. It's lowercase when it needs to be uppercase. You might think, so what? Right? Probably like me, I use capitalization very sparingly when I'm talking to my wife or my friends or something like that, right? It's not really necessary to convey meaning. Computers, though, not going to put up with it. Computers are very, 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 very picky. They require things to be very precise. And so we call this case sensitivity. You may have run into this with your passwords, for example, is another place where it commonly pops up. If the computer wants that letter to be capitalized, it has to be capitalized, and it will not work if you do not capitalize it. Knowing which letters you have to capitalize and which ones you don't takes a little bit of experience, because you'll notice that, oh, I didn't have to capitalize this one. I didn't have to capitalize the P. In fact, if I capitalize the P, I have the opposite problem where now this doesn't work. It actually expects it to be lowercase. So why does this letter have to be capital, but this one has to be lowercase? I didn't make the rules. There are some rules, though. There are some ways that you'll get used to figuring out how to understand them. But inside of this text here, well, anything goes. I can type any gibberish I want, whether capital or lowercase, and the computer's not going to care, right? Because that's not part of the instruction. That's part of the information, the data that I'm providing for the computer. Hope that makes sense, the distinction between those two things, because it's very important. This is the instruction, and this is just data. This is just information that is being provided to the instruction. Any questions for me so far? We still have about 15 minutes left to see how much we can cover with the remaining time that we have. We're going to move on to the second section, which is going to introduce a new concept. So one thing that we need to keep track of all the different pieces of data in our programs is this idea of variables. And if that makes you think of your calculus class or your algebra class, then good, because that's really kind of where the concept comes from. It is not exactly the same as a variable from those classes, but it does share some similarities. The biggest difference between the variables you learned in your algebra class and the variables that we're going to be talking about in this class is that all variables have a data type associated with them. So if I wanted to make a variable to track a number, notice that this is a variable declaration. I am making a variable. The name of this variable is score. The type of this variable is int. which is short for integer. So I'm saying that, hey, I want the computer to keep track of a piece of data, a single integer, and I want that data to have a name called score. So this is called a variable declaration. This is called a variable assignment. And the way to read variable assignments is actually from right to left. Take the value of 4 and store it in the variable called score. That's how this statement is going to work. Actually, if I were writing this, even though there are two separate things here, you can do it all in one go. And that's typically how I prefer to do it, and probably how you'll see me do it in basically every single class. And for this one, the name of the the type of the variable that I'm creating, the name of the variable that I'm creating equals whatever value I want that variable to have. So we create this variable called score. Once that variable has been created, then anytime we use that variable name, it will refer back to whatever that value is, 4. So on the next line here, you see I print out score, and that is not going to print out the word score. If I wanted to print out the word score, what would I have to do? Quotes. If I wanted to print out the text, the string score, I would have to put this in quotes, right? But that's not what I'm trying to do here. I actually want to print out the variable. So it'll actually print out the value of score, which should be 4. On this next line here, you see we're actually creating another variable. The type is not int, though. The type is double, which is a very strange name for a type. It does have a reason. It's not just made up. There is a reason why it's called double. But before I talk about that, let me state that doubles are for non-integer numeric types. So any numbers that have a decimal point involved. In fact, I can illustrate that to you a little bit more. If I come up here and I say 4.5, well, we have a problem. I told the computer that I was going to give it an int, an integer, and then I tried to give it something that is not an integer. This is actually a double. Can't do that. Not allowed, right? This has to be an integer. It could be negative. That's totally fair. But it has to be an integer. If decimals are something that I want, something that I need, then the data type is double. Double is the data type that is involved. The reason why it's called double, it stands for double precision. So basically saying how many places after the decimal point it is able to track for us, which for our purposes is enough. You don't need to worry about how many places after the decimal point. It's a lot. It's a ton. More than we ever need to worry about for this class. If you get into upper level computer science, that becomes a concern. If I'm computing how to land something on Mars, the number of decimal points that I'm using is important, and that's something that I'm going to worry about. For what we're talking about in this class, it doesn't matter to us. What matters is that things with decimals involved are called doubles. So here I've created a double variable. Notice though, let's try the opposite. What if I only gave it an int? Is it going to care? No, not going to care. This is a little bit inefficient from a computing perspective. One thing that we care about is how much space our data takes up. One integer doesn't take up that much space, but a double actually takes up more space than an integer does on the computer. So if I truly am representing a whole number and I expect it to always be a whole number, I'm wasting a little bit of space, which for one number is not going to make a difference. But if I have millions of numbers, could make a difference. Something to keep in mind. But all integers are in fact doubles. That is true. But the opposite is not true. Doubles are not integers. Anyway, if we put that back, we'll see one more data type here after this. This one is called a Boolean. Boolean variables, Boolean data types are probably the simplest to understand. There's only two possible values that Booleans can have. They can be true or they can be false. That's it. They can't be 7. They can't be hello. They can be true or they can be false. And if you think about what computers are and how computers work under the hood, right? A lot of you, I'm assuming most of you, probably heard of the concept of binary before, ones and zeros. If we dive down into the computer deep enough, everything is ones and zeros. This number eventually gets turned into ones and zeros. This number eventually gets turned into ones and zeros. It's all ones and zeros under the hood, right? So that kind of makes sense then why we would have a Boolean data type that represents true, which is the 1, or false, which is the 0. It turns out that these Boolean data types are very, very, very common, very, very useful to us. We're going to see them all the time. And then finally, the data type that we've already seen before, string. So you can see that just like we saw before, when I put something inside of quotes, that indicates that it is a string. I can also put that into a variable and store that as a variable. These are the 4 variable types that we are asking you to get used to. There are more. This is not a comprehensive list of all the data types that exist in Java. In fact, later on, much later on, around week 7 or so, we're going to show you how you can make your own data types. So there's really an infinite number of data types when you think about it that way. But for now, we're going to stick to these 4. And basically everything that we do for the next several weeks is going to use these 4 types of data. It's very, very important, though, again, to remember the operations that the computer performs depends on what that type of data is. So whatever you're trying to do, it's important to think about the data types that are involved in order to understand exactly how the computer is going to treat that data. With this Boolean variable, they do something a little bit interesting here. You'll notice that they first set it to be false, and then down here, this is another variable assignment statement. They set it to be true. And you might notice that unlike the first one, it doesn't say Boolean again. Doing this is actually a very common misconception. We don't have to say the data type every single time. It's not required. The computer will remember the data type of that variable. So when I declare the variable for the very first time, I have to say, hey, this is a Boolean variable. But later on, if I'm just using that variable to do something else, I don't have to keep saying Boolean, 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 Boolean. I only have to say the data type the very first time that I create variable. Otherwise, the computer will remember what type it is. And if I come in here and I try to do something that is not Boolean, like a 7, for example, then it's going to get upset with me. Booleans can only be true or false. 7 is not one of those things, so I can't do it. Even if I try to do this, that looks like maybe it should kind of work, but that is not Boolean. It's in quotes. So that is, in fact, a string. And that matters. That absolutely matters. Again, in order to understand how a computer is operating, it's very important to keep track of the data types that you're working with. And so I just want to, again, I actually haven't run this yet, but let me go ahead and run it and show you. Not terribly surprising. I get the 4 printed out, then the 23.45 printed out. But then the Boolean's the most exciting one to look at. It prints out false, and then I switch the value to be true and then print it out again. And you'll notice that false gets printed out first, and then true gets printed out. Once I do this, once I set the variable to something else, whatever it used to be before, poof, gone. I can't really get that value back. I can set it again. I can change it back to false later if I want to, but the computer is going to completely forget that and overwrite it, right? Replace whatever the value was with whatever value I'm saying that it should be now, which is a very important concept. Any questions for me? I think I have time to maybe get through at least one more, maybe 2, depending on how this one goes, the time I have left. Let's talk about a very long word for a very simple concept. The term that I want to introduce to you is called concatenation. This is one that is sometimes difficult for people to remember, sometimes difficult for people to spell if we ask about it on an exam, which we have done before. But it is a very important and a very common concept. Consider that I am creating an integer variable here, and then, this is a little interesting. I have a plus sign. So your brain is maybe thinking addition, right? But wait a second. This can't be addition. How could this possibly be addition? This is a number, but this is not a number. How do I say 0 plus text? Well, I don't. Not in the traditional addition sense, right? Again, the reason why it's not addition has to do with the data types. If I wanted it to be addition, I could add two numbers together. So I could say 7 plus score. That's addition. 7 plus 0 is 7, just like we learned about in math class. But this is not addition. This involves a string. Text can't be added. When we use the addition sign with text, that's a different operation. It's actually called concatenation. And the way that it works is it simply tacks this on to the end. So it takes the value of this variable and appends it to the string. So it would literally have the 0 inside of the, it's similar to thinking about taking this 0 and inserting it into the quotes. That's the effect of concatenation. You can see that here. The score is, and then the value of the variable gets concatenated on to the end of that string. But this is sort of the big theme of this module, the big theme of what we're trying to introduce to you today, and we'll continue talking about when we come back to lecture next week, which is this operation sometimes means addition. When you see a plus sign, sometimes that means addition. If the thing on the left and the thing on the right are both numbers, then it is addition, just like you know. But if one of the things is a string, if one or even both, if I put another string on the other side, same story. This is no longer addition, it is now concatenation. So the operation that is being performed, the operation that the computer is doing for us, depends upon the types of the data that are involved. If one thing on either side of that plus sign is a string, it is no longer addition, it is now this idea called concatenation, which is an idea that we will see used a lot and probably revisit many more times over the course of the semester. I'm going to stop here. We'll pick up where we left off, as I said, next Monday. But please take a look at these setup instructions. And if you get stuck, bring it into class on Wednesday. We'll be able to help you get unstuck. Thanks, everybody. Looking forward to a great semester.